Will say this though, if your name was Kyle, probably got run into by Christopher Bell this weekend. Both Kyle Larson and Kyle Busch. The best thing is Kyle Busch had a front row seat to when Bell,
Yeah.
he didn't take him out, but got into Larson, and then late in this race, Bell gives it to Kyle Busch, and Kyle Busch was not happy. There's certainly some feathers ruffled, and Kyle Busch is a guy you do not want to ruffle those feathers because he's like cooled down a little bit, but dude, he was pissed. Like he was real upset with Christopher Bell. It's a tough one to look at because Kyle really in looking at Kyle Busch specific is that's where the blood is boiling. He took that corner very high, really dive bomb straight back down. And Bell, probably went in there a little bit hot, but I certainly think that Kyle Busch really, really cut it a lot more than he probably should have. So it's probably more spotter error than driver error. But, we see the post-race comments, the altercation, and, Kyle Busch does sound like he does want to give it back to Christopher Bell. These are former teammates at Joe Gibbs Racing, so I don't know really what's going to happen there. But what do you make of this little snafu between KFB and Christopher Bell? Is it something we're going to see kind of move forward? Because Christopher Bell, like I said, is a quiet guy. He's obviously very young. He's got the baby face, and I know the stuff coming out about like all that stuff, which I just feel bad for because I really like Christopher Bell, and it just is what it is. But he's kind of getting poked at right now. But what do you make of this? Should we expect some retaliation from Kyle Busch, or is this something where a conversation's just gonna fix it? They're gonna move on and just continue to race.
Yeah, I mean, first off, I think it was less anger and more disappointment. Because they've known each other for a long time. You go back to the Truck Series. Christopher Bell won a championship for him in 2017, 7 years ago now. They've been teammates at Toyota for a long time. Kyle, of course, at Chevy now, but those relationships are always kind of intact, if they stay positive. And I feel like this has been a positive relationship for a long time when it comes to either being teammates or being owner-driver. So when I think when Kyle looks back at that moment, I don't know if his opinion's going to change a whole lot, because I feel like when you go into a corner like that, that's a very tricky corner there at COTA. And it's all about setting up the overtake with the guy in front of you. And Kyle was in the process of setting a guy up. He was kind of running wide, and he was going to kind of apex, hit the apex and get a good drive off. He was doing something. He was in the middle of his business, and Chris didn't have really, I don't know how he came in so quick and why things happened quick, I guess. And he didn't know that Kyle was going to shoot back low. But yeah, how I look at it, Chris definitely went in there pretty hard. And Kyle just had no way to know that he was going to blow up his inside. And spotter wise, that's a really tough thing to call. And I just think Kyle expected better from the 20 at that point in the race. And just where they were running, he would have expected him to know what was going on at that time. And the post-race thing, you can tell that's just how I saw it. It was a guy who's known him since he was a kid, and now he's a champion in the Truck Series, and he's doing great things in Cup. And he's like, dude, what are you doing? Have I ever run into you? I think that's what he said at one point. Mm-hmm. He's like, all right, you got one coming now. And I think he put up, 2 or 3 fingers of situations that he's had with him, I think. But yeah, it was a lot of disappointment, I can tell. And I don't know if it's going to blow over, throughout this week, or if they've had conversations. I'm sure they've had. Chris seems like, Kyle's somebody who he looks up to. People call him a baby face because he just, when you have someone like him up in your face, someone who you respect very deeply, and they're telling you, hey, you did this wrong and I'm pissed at you. Cameras are all on you, all these recorders on you. Yeah, you kind of freeze up at that point. And I definitely kind of felt that just by looking at him. And I'm sure they had a great conversation this week. I wouldn't expect anything. He's not going to give him any room, at least, this week or so. You have to remember what Kyle is in this season. He's not where he's not where Bell is right now. Kyle's had a lot more difficult weeks than he's had positive weeks this year. That absolutely plays a huge part into this. It's not always on the surface what the incident is or who it's with. You got to look back. What are they going through? How has this season been? How was their race going at that time? A lot of factors, and for Kyle, it's just been more negative than positive, and that led to that situation blowing over into a post-race conversation.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of frustration, in the Kyle Busch camp. But look, not all was lost. He still was able to rebound and finish top 10. He finally snapped a streak of 3 consecutive finishes outside of the top 20. So we want to see this 8 car up front. Like, the Cup Series better when Kyle Busch is winning races, when he's relevant, when stuff like this is happening. We want to see, we want to see this. Like, we want to see drivers get in each other's faces off track. Like, we'd rather see it off track than on track, right? Just because driver safety, guys taking each other out at high speeds. Like, we want to see more of that off track altercation. At least me. That's something that I've always loved, especially growing up and watching like the old school blue collar racers, of years past, and Kyle Busch being multi-champion that he is, the legend that he has become in NASCAR. Like, we want to see this, and